on average, just in the United States, about 220 people die every single day from an opiate overdose. By the time we finish this show, 8 to 10 people are going to die from an opiate overdose. If we get even one person, one viewer with this program that we might be able to help with some of the information that's shared on here, then it's all worth it.
Oh, there we go.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Dare Me podcast. And actually, good evening to everyone on the East Coast. We are coming to you live right now on the Dare Me podcast. I'm here in Sacramento, California, where it's 6 o'clock on the West Coast. And we have my partner in crime, Dean Baker, coming to us live from Orlando, Florida, on the East Coast. And it's 9 o'clock there. What's happening, Dean? How you doing this week?
Things are going well.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
Yes.
really looking forward to this week's show. We got a deep topic. I've been getting quite a few messages over the last couple of days. I posted some promos about it in Reels. We're going to be talking about suicide and how the opiate epidemic has fueled that, if you will, and had an effect on that and all. And it's pretty deep. You know, there's a stigma attached to that topic, as we all know. And we're going to try to break down some of them barriers and talk a little bit more about it on the show today. And, sorry, had to grab something there. We're also going to have a special guest on the show today. That boy Shebang will be coming in from Detroit City, and I think Shebang needs to add his camera. And,
Do you want him on? I'll bring him in.
Yeah, I see him. There he is.
What's up?
Hey, Shebang. Thanks so much for being with us here on the show today. So once again, man, we are nationwide. You know, we're California, Michigan, Florida, and you know, I was talking to Shebang prior to the show. We had you on a couple weeks ago, bro, and I really appreciate you participating. And I told Shebang I don't want to do this week what I did a couple weeks ago, where we introed you at the beginning of the show and then put you on ice for a half hour while I ran my mouth. So I want you to, you know, kind of be involved right from the get-go, man. And by all means, you know, when I start running my mouth talking about things we're going to talk about today, if you want to interject, you just jump right in there whenever you want to, bro. So anyway, let's jump right into it, because I do got to kind of, you know, put out there and recap the purpose of this show. I think it's important to do that every week in case, you know, I know we got some regular viewers, and, I got to jump up and go back into the chat. I don't want to do what I did a couple weeks ago and have it on private and not see who's chimed in. We've already got Linda in the chat, and she's following us from St. Louis.
Hey,
so
Linda.
we've got Missouri, Michigan, California, Florida already on the show today. Hey, welcome, Linda. Hope you're doing well. So, yeah, I think it's important to recap the purpose of this show every week, because although we do have regular viewers now, because this is episode 8, blows my mind, the followers we've gotten already, which we're going to talk about later in the show, you know, how we continue to grow. But I just think it's important to recap the purpose of the show because we may have someone who's tuning in for the very first time each week. And that is kind of sort of our goal. You know, there's that old saying, play to your audience. And I love it that we have regular followers, regular viewers and listeners now that the show has been on, you know, into the 8th episode. I'll also say that, we are trying to grow and attract new viewers and listeners every time we're on that are trying to kick opiates and any drug addiction, quite frankly, for that matter, which again is the purpose of this show. That was the whole vision and idea when we started this program, is to try to help people who may be struggling specifically with an opiate addiction, but really any drug addiction at all. And myself, I had a 9-year addiction to opiates. It all started with opiate medication when I broke my ankle, and at the end of it, I was snorting fucking heroin, for God's sakes, because I'd get dope sick. At my age, I had no desire to be doing that shit, but when you get dope sick, man, which we talk about more on the program, you'll do just about anything. And boy, oh boy, I see we've already got 7 viewers watching us live right now. So, hey, welcome to all of y'all. Feel free to chime in on the chat. We can bring you on live where we see you right on camera if you want. Dean can provide a link in the chat. We can put the phone number up, which we'll do later in the show.
The wheels are coming off.
Yeah. So anyways, though, man, I'm so grateful to say that I have over 2 years clean now off the opiates. Thank God. It's still, it blows my fucking mind, man, because I had just about given up on ever trying to get clean again. And I appreciate you hitting the applause button, Dean, but as we say in the room sometimes, I say it not for the applause, but for the cause.
Right.
I appreciate any props and all y'all, but I can tell y'all right now, I don't really take credit for it, man. I could never do this by myself. It's with the help of people like yourselves, Shebang, and our other viewers and people who've been my cheerleaders along the way. There's so many people that have been instrumental in helping me to get clean. And for anybody who may come across this program, whether you're watching live or you see the recorded version, it can be done when we're willing to either ask for help or accept help, or a combination of both sometimes is what it takes. And that certainly was the case with me. I just want to say, if somebody is struggling with an opiate addiction, with myself, I would go on YouTube, I would go on Google, because I tried, man. God, I tried to kick for so long before I was finally able to. I was searching for information, how to get through opiate withdrawals, what can help with opiate withdrawals, things to that nature. And as I've said before, and I'll just keep saying it on this program, I came across some good information. There is good information out there, but there's nothing like what we're doing. Nothing that I saw or found like what we are doing. So if you do come across this program, you're looking for answers, you're looking for tips, you're looking for suggestions, potential ways to try to get out of it, on this show, we can talk about some of them things, and I promise you, if you really want to do it, because you got to want it, you can do it. You can fucking do it. You can get through it. I understand the misery of going through opiate withdrawals. It's the worst thing I've ever been through in my life. But you can do it. And I like saying it on this show. One of my favorite sayings, and man, it helped me when I was going through it, is when you're going through hell, keep fucking going. Just keep going. You'll come out the other side of it. And so with all that said, that kind of recaps the purpose of the show. I've said before, one of my visions when I started it was, hopefully maybe trying to get through some people, to some people from the professional world, the corporate world, where I worked for most of my career. Because I think, it's different for everybody. I'll also say, when you work in a high profile position in corporate America, in the news media, or whatever it is, it can be a little bit maybe harder sometimes to come forward, to come out, as they say, and acknowledge that you have a problem because of the fucking stigma attached to this addiction thing and suicide, which we're going to be talking about, that's killing people left and right. You know what I mean? And but really, this program is geared toward anyone trying to kick an opiate addiction. I see we got John Campbell just chimed in. I guess he's a bro of yours, Shebang. He says, "What's up, Shebang?" So
Welcome,
to the
John.
program,
Sir,
John.
thank you for joining us.
Yeah. So anyway, like I said, y'all, that kind of recaps the purpose of the show. We're just trying to help some people, man. And, today is May 7th, 2023. We are so happy and excited to be into our 8th edition of this show. It just blows my mind. Shebang, you and I, as you know, went to a convention in Florida, the Florida Regional NA Convention a couple years ago. And I want to bring you into the program right out of the gate here, because if you remember, we went to a meditation workshop. This is going back, it'll be 2 years in July. And I had already had this idea and vision of potentially doing a podcast. And if you remember, we both shared in that meeting, and when we were done, we were all mingling and talking, and I had that one girl come up to me and say, "Hey man, have you ever thought about doing a podcast?" And it just fucking blew my mind. Do you remember that?
I forgot about that until you just brought that up, and now I'm replaying that memory in my mind. That's crazy. What the fuck?
Yeah, man. I don't mean to flower shit up too much and get too mystical and all that stuff, but I will also say, man, I don't give a fuck. It is what it is. I truly feel like I was led to do this program, it's just blows my mind, like I've said, putting yourself out there like this, especially when, you come from the corporate world. And I'll tell you, man, I've had some people added to like my social media lately from my professional life who are just like probably thinking, oh my God, what the fuck? What happened with Glenn? I had no idea. Matter of fact, I had some people this past week tell me they had no idea, So yeah, man, just, but like I've said before, if anything we're doing on this show, me put myself out there, coming out, if you will, being open and honest about my addiction and struggles helps even one person, like Dean has in that promo, those sound bites from that one show we did, then it's all worth it to me. I just feel like I have no right to keep to myself what happened with me and how I was able to come out the other end of it if it helps even one person stay alive even one day longer. So anyway, I want to do some shout outs real quick, because I was just talking about, I've had some people from my professional life just this past week connect with me on social media. And I want to say hello to my friend Kathy and her old man Big Dog from Orlando. Kathy goes by Kitty Cat. They're both bikers, you know what I mean? But we used to work together in my professional life her and I, we worked together for a long time. She was an executive assistant, and we were real close working together. And man, we just lost track of each other for quite a while there. And she had messaged me, DM me, that she doesn't get on social media a lot. But she did for some reason and came across my stuff. And so kind of scrolled through it just to see what I've been up to. And man, I'm trying not to get filled up talking about it, because there again, she sent me this message saying, "Wow, Glenn, I just think it's so awesome what you're doing." These are the kind of examples I've given on previous shows of how I'm convinced, man, I'm on the right path. We are on the right path with this show and what we're doing. So shout out to Kathy, and please say hi to your old man, Big Dog. I hope to see y'all again next time I'm back in Central Florida. I also wanted to send a shout out to my boy, Lance. Shebang, Lance from Detroit City, man. He sent me
Good
a
buddy
message.
of mine.
Yeah, and oh my God, another example, man. He sent me a DM, just saying, "Wow, Glenn, man, I love what you're doing, and please, I'm paraphrasing, trying to remember what he said, just like, please keep spreading the positive energy you are," you know what I mean? And I remember that one night last summer, bro. We were in the stew at the apartment in Detroit when Lance came over.
Oh,
and we
yeah.
was messing around.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yep. And then I also want to send another couple quick shout outs to that boy BG from Detroit. He messaged me today, man, and he said he wants to be a guest on the show. So if you're watching, BG, hell yeah, bro, we'll get you on today if you happen to be watching, man.
He's a real one, man. He's got a good story. He's got a powerful message, man.
He does have a powerful message, man. I got a funny story about BG. If you remember, Shebang, we saw him at the Michigan NA convention last 4th of July, and we all went out to eat at that Indian restaurant. And, you know, I'm so flexible because I work out all the time. I go to yoga, I stretch and all that. And I'm literally sitting in the chair, crisscross applesauce. And he looked at me and he goes, how the fuck are you able to sit like that at your age, bro? And I start laughing. I go, lots of yoga, man. Lots of yoga,
And
you
then
know.
bro,
He
I
said he wanted to
remember
try it. So I want to talk to him about it. Do you remember that, bro?
Oh, dude, I remember when we got to the restaurant, you were the one, you're like, man, I'm not even that hungry. I'm just going to get a little snack. And then the lady came. My man Glenn ordered probably one of everything on the menu, bro. It was so funny, man. But yeah, that was a good experience, man. That was at Grand Rapids, right?
Yeah, that was in Grand Rapids. Yeah. So anyway, shout out to BG, and we will get you on the show soon, bro. And then I did want to do a couple more real quick. Want to send a shout out to my boy G, G Money, my son. He was on the program with us a couple weeks ago. He was just not able to be on this week. He had previous commitments, but we're going to have him on the show again real soon. And we were talking that we're going to talk about, you know, because he's such a fitness expert. He don't like me calling him an expert, fitness enthusiast. And we're going to talk about juicing. And I think that really ties into, you know, our program talking about drug abuse and things to that nature. And, you know, that whole steroid thing, I was joking around with him. I said, but half serious. I was like, God damn, G, it occurred to me after we were showing them before and after pictures of both him and me, people are going to think them motherfuckers are taking steroids. And I swear to God, y'all, we are not. We are completely, you know, drug-free, natural, man. That's like
happiness is a hell of a drug, man.
Yeah, say that, bro. So anyway, shout out to that boy G. And we also want to send a shout out, one more, to Dennis Salvaggio, my bro, Dennis Salvaggio, the Orlando Magic fat guy. I said last week on the show we were going to try to have him on this week. And it just didn't work out. I had so much other stuff going on this week. And I did reach out and talk to him and call him, but I didn't get a hold of him till like Friday, real late in the day. And I think I actually caught him at dinner with his wife. And he took my call, though, and we talked for, I don't know, maybe about 10 minutes. And then, you know, there again, he's a guy from my professional life. And he was like, oh, my God, Glenn, I had no idea, bro. He goes, and that was all going on during times we worked together. And I was like, I know, bro. You know, it's like so easy to hide that shit from people sometimes. You become like a functioning addict. You know what I mean? And
Glenn, I didn't mean to interject.
No, please
talk about that a little bit, because I feel like that's a case with a lot of people when they get clean, that you start realizing, okay, maybe more people than what I expected actually knew about what was going on. And then there's certain people that are like, oh, I had no idea you were going through that shit. I knew something was up, you know? And I feel like it's an important thing to talk about, especially for people that might be early on in their journey, because I know for myself, I went through a phase where I was like, man, I feel like everyone's going to judge me, my family. It's not going to be acceptable. I don't know how to act in front of family functions. And there was a lot of obstacles in that area, you know? So I'm curious on your perspective on that. What was your experience?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought it up, bro. It's like even when we were talking with G on the show a couple of weeks ago, here my own son lived with me through all that, and he himself said, you know, when I had that first relapse that I've talked about on this show and talk about more as we go, it was on the booze. Because again, for somebody who may be tuning into this show for the first time, part of my story is I got clean as a younger man. You know, I'm a 61-year-old guy now, man. I got clean just shy of 25 and very involved with like NA, 12-step programs, all that shit. I stayed clean for almost 17 years, and then I had a horrible relapse on the booze that lasted over 5 years. And the reason I bring that up is because, G, my son said, well, Dad, when you had that first relapse, man, it was pretty noticeable. You know, when somebody's drinking, you can tell, you know, you can smell it. You know, I always called booze a fucking sloppy drug.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, that is the sloppiest drug.
Oh, yeah.
You stink, your eyes are all red, your skin gets rosy, you're slurring your words, you're stumbling. It's fucking sloppy. It just blows my mind, you know, when you think about it. That's the most accepted drug in society. Right. We all been sold up the fucking river on the booze, you know. I used to say, man, we had it backwards. We had pot illegal and booze legal. Should have been the fucking other way around, you know. You can't even drive when you're fucking drinking. People drive smoking weed all the time. I'm not endorsing that or saying do it. Point I'm making is anybody who knows that it ain't as dangerous, you know what I mean? But you can still get a DUI for that. Anyway, the point I'm making is, man, he said that when I relapsed on the booze, it was quite obvious he knew it. So to answer your question, if you remember, he said, "My God, Dad, with the opiates and the pills, it was a progressive thing." So he didn't really pick up on it or notice it till them last couple of years, and especially that last year where it just totally got out of fucking control. So, you know, there is that old saying too that I've heard around the program, you know, Shebang, I'm sure you've heard this, you know, sometimes when we get into the depths of our using or the, you know, the end of it, it's like we run around thinking we're tricking everybody, but the only one we're tricking is ourselves. And so I think that's usually the case near the end of, you know, a run. But man, yeah, like I said, Dennis, you know, he said, "God, Glenn, I didn't even know, man, you know."
Yeah.
But Dean, if you remember, bro, I posted a picture of me. We did an awards event for the company I was working for, and there were a couple high-profile news anchors there, Jim Payne and Matt Austin from WESH and KMG in Orlando. And I went back, it like one of these pictures came up in my memories, and it's so weird when I see pictures now of myself. It's the first thing that comes to my mind is was it pre-opiates or post-opiates or during that? And it's like I can look at a picture, and the first thing that comes to my mind is like either I was high as fuck or I was dope sick, you know. And I'm looking at this picture of me and Jim and Matt at this event, and I was high as fuck. My eyes were barely even open. And you look, because these guys are right next to me, and their eyes are like wide open like mine, you know, right now, you know. But oh my God. And I look at that picture and think to myself, how the fuck did nobody know? You know, and you know, that kind of goes back to something I was saying earlier. You know, I think sometimes in the professional world, in the business world, corporate America, especially high profile media people, sometimes people tend to look the other way. Like, oh, he's going through something, let's let it go. Oh, we don't want to cause no waves or whatever the fuck. Or sometimes in companies, you know, it's like, that motherfucker's our highest producer. Leave him the fuck alone. Let him just keep doing what he's doing. That lets you fucking, you know, use yourself right into the ground, you know. So, you know,
Well, you gotta imagine that that in a professional world, you really only know one side of a person, unless you hang out with them socially.
Isn't
So if
that
you hang
true?
out with them socially, then you get to know the real Glenn Victor when he's not in front of the cameras and
That
all
is
that.
so right, Dean.
You know,
Yeah.
so in the professional world, it's probably easy. And the other fact is, some people just know how to drive drunk.
Yeah.
Some people really know how to drive drunk, and then some people are just crazy, badass, stupid doing it. You know,
Amateur hour. We
right?
call it.
But there are
Yeah,
professional drunks out there that know how to, you know. And I'm sure professional opiate users. Yeah, I'm sure there are those too. You've scratched your you know, dabbled in that a little bit as well.
Oh God, I'm
Yeah.
not proud to admit it. I'm not proud to admit it at all. But did I drive on opiates? Come on, y'all. I was on a 9-year fucking run, you know. And that goes back to kind of even like what I was saying with G. It was like he was like, "Dad, I could hardly see it," you know. And we got to
Yeah.
remember, opiates affect different people in different ways, you know. Most of that run was me doing the pills, the meds, you know. You take a heroin addict, you know, especially an IV user, you know, they're going to inject and they're going to nod out and shit like that. If that's your vision of it, it's not always like that. Maybe,
Right.
you know, you do and then you nod, but then you come out of the nod and you're fucking, now all of a sudden you're ready to go do your thing. You know what I mean? So,
That
you know,
functioning addict is
a
definitely
functioning
a real
addict.
thing,
Yep.
man. Because you know, you guys might not know, but I was kind of like Glenn's scenario where I was very hooked on pills, right? I was hooked on
Yeah.
opiates, hooked on benzos, and my body became so dependent on them that unless you really knew me, you probably didn't think something was up, you know, other than my mom. Like my mom would look at me in the eyes and she'd be like, "Dude, you're fucking high." But it's weird because as soon as I would add booze into the mix, I drink 2 beers and I'm acting wild. Everybody knows, like, this kid is fucked up right now.
Wow.
So it's crazy just how different substances affect different people. Like, I remember telling you, Glenn, because you're like, dude, I couldn't even take the Xanax. They would make me so just sleepy and brain dead. And I was like, dude, I used to take 7 bars and go to work a full
I don't
day.
know how you could, bro. I mean, because I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, we haven't talked a lot about benzos on this program, and we are going to talk about that because I planned on it a little bit later in the show, but I had a script for Xans, and my script was low. You know, they were 0.5 milligrams, and I was supposed to take like 1 a day or as needed. And anytime I'd take them things, man, they would knock me the fuck out. And I would hear all these stories. And that was kind of during the time when Xans were kind of being glorified by a lot of, you know, musicians, you know, like Peep and Lil Xan and all these people who, you know, we've talked about this, Shebang, and it's just like, I think, how the fuck are people even staying awake on that shit to, you know, quote unquote, enjoy the buzz when for me, it would knock me the fuck out. I would take it literally to try to help me sleep if I was so wired up and strung out on the fucking opes. You know what I mean?
It's so crazy how everybody's physiology is so different. Like, I know so many people, bro, that like, they're like, I drink caffeine before I go to bed. Like, I got a buddy who literally drinks a Red Bull before he goes to bed because he claims that it helps him relax. And I'm like, dude, either you got the craziest genetics I've ever fucking heard of. Or I don't know.
No, that's a good point, though, Shebang. It affects everybody different. But anyway, want to send a shout out to Dennis as well. He told me to give him a call this week, and I will, Dennis, if you catch this show. I'm going to give you a call, not Friday at 6, you know. It really was kind of a crazy week, y'all. I had some challenges with my little dog, Jazzy. Man, she had to go in for some surgery. And oh man, if y'all watch my personal stuff on my social media, and if you know me in my personal life, that's my running buddy, man. You know, we get so attached to our animals, and I've had that dog since she was 5 weeks old. She turned 8 last month, and so yeah, man, threw me for a loop. She's fine, she's okay, you know, but I was worried she had something stuck in her throat. Linda just chimed in. Red Bull at bedtime. She said for her it would be a sleepless night. I'm the same with Red Bull, bro. But anyway, so the point I'm making is I'll get a hold of Dennis, try to reach him sooner this week, and hopefully we have him on the program next time, because last week, if you tuned in, you remember we talked about the opiate settlement with Purdue Pharma, $6 billion. It was the 1-year anniversary of that settlement last week, and they haven't distributed the fucking money yet. You know, they're trying to figure out how to dice and slice it. And although, you know, the opioid settlement isn't necessarily his area of expertise, Dennis is a criminal defense attorney, and a damn good one, and has been for years. He's pretty much retired, I guess, now, but, you know, again, I think still takes some cases. But we'll talk with him a little bit about that. And then also fitness. Man, he did tell me when I talked to him the other day, I think he said he lost 130 pounds, man. Yeah, he ain't the Orlando Magic fat guy anymore.
Really?
But, yeah. And by the way, Shebang, I did talk to him about his trips to Easter Island and all that. And turns out, man, I guess he's been back more than I knew. He's been there like 7, 8 times. So the dude,
man, I got to take a trip out there with him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. He's cool. So anyway, those are the shout outs. Well, hey, I want to talk about some current events now.
Uh-oh.
And Shebang, you and I, we talk all the time about, oh man, what you watching on TV? What's a good movie to watch? What's a good show to watch, or whatever? And we've turned each other onto some really cool stuff. One thing two actually, that I watched this past week that we hadn't talked about. One of them is a Netflix special that this comedian John Mulaney did. And bro, it was so fucking good. And for anybody who doesn't know, John Mulaney is a recovering drug addict.
Wow.
And the whole special was all about the intervention that his colleagues, fellow comedians, did on him, and his whole trip to rehab. So man, it just came out like within the last month, and I ended up watching it. It's on Netflix right now. It came out April 25th. There's the date on that picture Dean's got up. And so I got to tell you, man, the dude, what's that, Shebang?
That I definitely got to check that out.
Oh,
man.
yeah. And especially,
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
for anybody in the recovery community, man, you definitely want to check it out, or anybody really. It's just hilarious, man. And I love the approach he takes to it because, again, as we've talked about many times on the show, you know, that whole fucking stigma attached to drug addiction. And like I was even saying, man, for someone in a high profile position, it takes balls to come out, you know, and acknowledge you've got a challenge with addiction or whatever. And for a guy in his position to, you know, take this approach to it and say, you know, hey man, I had a fucking problem. You know, as he says in the special, you know, he was running around New York City all coked out and shit. You know, and he mentioned some of the people that were there at his intervention, some high profile comedians and colleagues of his, and it's just really good. So I highly recommend that. And then, man, it goes to show, and he does in the credits, by the way, list those people, and he puts thank you for saving my life, man.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really powerful, you know. Interventions, man. I'll tell you what, you know, even with myself, I've told my story on here before, you know. There was I call it a little mini intervention done on me. It was a teleconference with two of my sisters and my brother from back in Detroit when I was living in Orlando. And I didn't agree to do anything on the spot. It took me a few days and all. And I know that was kind of helped, you know, orchestrated by my son G and my boy Mark and all. They were having input. They were talking about me behind my back like, oh, he's all fucked up. You know?
Bro, isn't it crazy how like resistant to interventions we are when
Yeah.
we're in that stage? I remember my family, to my knowledge, has only done one intervention on me. And I remember I was off, drugged out, doing my own thing. And mom was like, hey, I'm making a special dinner. Come home. And I come home and they're here, my whole family sitting in my fucking living room. Grandma, grandpa, aunt,
Yeah.
uncle. And I was literally so angry. Like I was throwing a
I
fit. I
know.
went and locked myself in my room, man.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, interventions are a trip, y'all. I've been a part of one once. I'm not going to call the person out. I will say they were very, very resistant. I'll also say that person has, I think, over 4 years sober now. I think it was four last December. It might have been five. I can't remember. What I will say is, you know, if you are part of an intervention and the person doesn't agree to go on the spot and gets angry or is resistant, don't beat yourself up over that, because even the one that I was a part of, I feel like, hey, although the person didn't agree to go into a treatment place on the spot, we planted the seed. You know, it makes them realize just how serious it has gotten. And once they get a chance to get past the emotion, the adrenaline rush of realizing they were bum rushed, you know, and they get to sit alone with their thoughts and feelings about it after the intervention's over, it'll hit them just how serious it has gotten. And then they'll also realize, man, these people must really fucking care about me more than I even realized or thought, if they went out of their way to do this and try to help me out. You know, I posted a reel yesterday promoting today's show. And man, I'll tell you, I've been fucking these reels. You know, you can really get creative with them sometimes. And you know, me and Shebang, you know, we're such fucking music people, and lyrics mean so much to me. And I use that tune, "How to Save a Life," you know, which is all about conducting an intervention on somebody. And I tried to kind of match the lyrics to pictures I put up and stuff. But I was thinking about that when I was making that reel. So anyway, though, the John Mulaney comedy special on Netflix, highly recommended for anybody, but specifically to people involved in recovery or someone who may come across this program that's still fucking struggling, trying to get through addiction. This will really give you kind of a humorous approach to it and hopefully take some of that stigma away. Like, hey, bro, so you got fucking hooked. You know, you can get through it. You can save your life, man. Watch that thing, and it'll give you a different perspective on it. Now, going from that extreme where an intervention worked and helped pull Mulaney out of it, who's living his best life again, I also watched this doc on Aaron Carter. And oh my God, man, I'm trying not to get filled up. I never met the man, but for anybody who knows, Aaron Carter died not long ago. And Aaron Carter was a very famous singer. He's a brother of Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys. Now, of course, Backstreet Boys, were a lot more famous, but Aaron Carter, when he was a little kid, man, he was huge. God, I remember my kids being into him, you know what I mean? And, there's an Orlando connection too, Dean, for all our
Yeah.
Central Florida fans. Backstreet Boys made it, big and came out of Central Florida.
Yeah.
And I watched this documentary. It was, I believe it's on Hulu right now, but it was produced by like ABC News or whatever. You know what I mean? But yeah, Aaron Carter, man, he ended up, it kind of tied into that whole childhood star kind of thing and all. But he really went down the deep end, as we say, the last few years of his life. He was real active on social media, and people were just very, very concerned about him and all. And man, with all respect, bro, it's like he didn't make it. And so this documentary included a lot of different interviews with different people, and one of them that I thought was interesting was AJ McClain, who is one of the guys from the Backstreet Boys who is in recovery. And he even talked about how he was involved with, kind of an intervention with Nick Carter. And in fact, yeah, Dean brought up the story that's actually a shot of AJ in the documentary where he says he, talked Aaron Carter into going to rehab before his death, and how he, tried to help him get sober. And, he also, there's a quote, Dean, that I had sent you. He's had struggles with addiction going back to I think he first started trying to get clean in 2000, and he's had challenges ever since. And in the documentary, he shared he's got, I think, a little over 18 months now. So, it just goes to show, man, here 23 years later, the dude is, still working on his recovery. Obviously, he had some challenges since he first started to get clean back in 2000 because he shared openly in the documentary that he's got a little over 18 months now. But, it just goes to show, man, this shit is so far reaching.
Is this the one right here?
Yeah, that's the one,
Okay.
Dean. Yeah, this was a quote from AJ in that documentary where he says, hey, he was a functioning addict. He'd been in and out of the room since 2001. I said 2000. For 22 years, and he's battling his own shit, almost lost his marriage, his band, his whole life. And then he says the last time he relapsed, about 18 months ago, his daughter, I guess, was talking to him and said, you don't smell like my dad. So
Ooh.
talking about the booze, apparently he was reeking of booze.
Wow.
And that was his, that was a wake-up call for him, and he's got over 18 months. So, hey, AJ, if you happen to come across this program, bro, we love you, man. And like I've said before, we talked about fucking M and some of the other guys, man. I shoot for the sky, bro. Aim high, soaring, aim low, boring. We're going to get some of these high-profile guys on the show sometime, and we'd love to have AJ on and talk about it, man. So, bro, if you ever see this, hey, reach out to us, man. We'd love to talk to you on this program about living clean. And then, kind of another Orlando connection, AJ's mom. It's kind of interesting. If you're looking for an interesting read, she wrote a book all about, Backstreet Mom. There you go. She tells a story all about her son's rise to fame, struggle with addiction, and his ultimate triumph over it. And I know his mom, Denise, was very involved in the recovery community in Central Florida when he first came out back in the early 2000s. They were just so popular coming out of Central Florida. I remember even Nick Carter went to my son G's elementary school when he was a kid and spoke to the kids there and stuff. And so, anyway, I just thought we'd show this interesting read. And, man, kind of a Central Florida connection, which a lot of y'all know I lived there for 30 years. So I thought we'd talk about that too. Two interesting programs I watched just this past week having to do with recovery. One was, a complete opposite spectrums. Mulaney gets this intervention done, gets clean. He's living his best life, back out there doing shows and shit. And unfortunately, The other one I watched was about that boy Nick Carter, and he didn't make it. Died from an overdose, man. So God bless them both. So anyway, just thought we'd talk about that stuff. So now I want to get a little bit closer to the topic for this week's show that we teased and talked about, and that having to do with suicide and addiction and all. And a couple of things happened this past week that I think kind of led me to decide to do this show focusing on that topic of suicide. Again, not to flower this thing up too much, y'all, but I've said before, this show truly has taken on a life of its own. And I just feel like, hey, man, I'm just, I don't have no master grand plan. I just kind of go with the flow and the vibes and the energy. And, whatever happens on this show happens, man. There ain't nothing scripted, nothing like that, and no big plan, like I said. So this week, I got a text from a friend of mine who I'm not going to, mention specifically or whatever, but it's someone very close to me that I care about, who is addicted to opiates and wants to kick and is trying to kick and was really going through a hard time and texted me, half serious, I'm quite sure, but really kind of, half joking, half serious, whatever, going through fucking hell, and said in the text, I'm paraphrasing, but this basically, it's a good thing I don't own any guns because I might use them right now. Whew, man, yeah, I'm trying not to get filled up because that hits hard. Man, can I fucking relate to that? I relate to that feeling. So, hey, my friend, if you're watching this, just fucking hang tough, hang tough, keep doing what you're doing. We'll talk more. I communicate with people off the air on a regular basis that are still struggling with that shit. And, I just promise you, man, if you want to fucking kick an opiate addiction, you don't think you can do it when you're going through the fucking withdrawals and the hell, but you can. I'm living proof of it. We'll talk about it more later. The other thing, and Shebang, you and I talked about this before the program. Oh, man. Yeah, we lost somebody this past week, y'all. And Shebang, you knew him better than I did. You were a little closer to him. And of course, we have, some friends that were much closer to him, certainly than I. But I met the dude 3 times. And, when I was first kicking and getting clean, I told my story on the show many times. I left Orlando and went to Detroit to kick. Most people leave Detroit to get clean. I went back to Detroit. But while I was up there, I had some people close to me that really, some of whom I'm estranged from now, but that's another story, who kind of helped, take me under their wing, show me around, introduce me to some people and took me to some meetings. And one of the meetings I got involved in where I actually met you, Shebang, was this meditation group and this step study group where we were meeting, a couple times a week. And this dude came in 3 times that I was there. I mean, he came many more times than that, but that I was there. I met him 3 times. And I was told, ahead of time, man, he's a real one, bro. He's probably going to come high, And I was even told he came to that meeting one time and was so fucked up they had to Narcan him outside of the meeting. And, I remember talking with him there, man. And, he gave me his number. And I was thinking about that myself, bro. I got to fucking go in my phone and delete that number eventually, 'cause he ain't there no more.
That's a tough thing right there to do, man. What you just said, man, I've thought about that before too, going back and deleting numbers of people that have passed on. Ooh, that's a tough thing to do for sure.
Yeah, and you know what I was thinking this week, Shebang, is me and him exchanged numbers, and I never called the dude, bro. Never called him. And I'm not saying if I had, that would have made any difference or I'd have been able to help him or save him or whatever the fuck. It reminded me, too, of a friend of ours from the east side, and I know I can say his name, that boy Nicholas. I remember, I think I've told you this story. Back when I was still up there, I got his number from him, and I asked him for his number, and he said to me, jokingly but quite serious, he goes, "All right, bro, I'll give you my number, but I don't know why the fuck you even asking. You know you ain't never gonna use it. Everybody
Mm,
always wants to get each other's numbers around here, and nobody ever fucking uses them." And
mm,
you know what? I remember that, and I called Nicholas
wow.
frequently. Now I haven't called him in probably about 2 months now, so it's been a little bit. But that was almost like 2 years ago that I got his number, and we usually play phone tag. Like he'll call me back or text me back, and well, we have caught each other a couple times, but. He's one that I do call regularly
Yeah.
because he said that to me. And and
Mm,
and like we talk about in the rooms, man, it's like, sometimes, when you don't see somebody around for a while, give them a call to see what they're or how
how
they're
they're
doing.
doing.
Not necessarily what they're doing, but
Mm,
to see how they're doing. And that's kind of how I look at it with that boy Nicholas. But like I was saying, man, I never fucking called the guy we talked about who passed
mm,
away this past week, man. And it's like,
yeah.
fuck, man, you just never know when just one simple call might make a difference. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I ain't saying the dude committed suicide. We don't really know the whole story other than that knowing what we know, it was more than likely drug related, and that's an example of how, bro, man, I don't give a fuck if somebody's watching this struggling and you're trying to get through it, man. I've talked about 12-step meetings on this program many times. We're going to talk about them more. I wish going to meetings was the answer all by itself and it was just that fucking simple, but it ain't.
Mm,
It's not like you walk in a 12-step meeting, whether it's NA, AA, OA, fucking A, whatever. It ain't like you walk in the door and they sprinkle some pixie dust on you and now all of a sudden you're okay and
new
everything's going to
person.
be fine. Fuck, I wish it was that easy. How
Yeah.
did you call it, Shebang? When I first started coming back, you were laughing at me saying, "God damn, Glenn, you want that microwave recovery." It happens
That
instantly.
microwave recovery, you want it all in
Yeah,
one day,
it
man, in
ain't
one
that
month.
fucking simple, man. God,
Yeah.
you gotta get clean, get
Yeah.
through the withdrawals and all that, and then you gotta start
Yeah.
working on some issues. Cause like I've said on here many times, man, any old asshole can get clean, go through detox, go
Yeah.
into a treatment center, kick in your sister's basement like I did, whatever the fuck you gotta do. But how you gonna stay clean,
I'm
man?
glad, bro. I'm glad, Glenn. Don't mean to interject you, but I'm
No,
glad that
please
you
do,
brought
bro.
that up because I feel like that's a huge lesson for me in my journey. Because if you think about it, when we're using drugs, we're in impulsive mode, right? Anytime we have a problem, we take a pill, we have a
Yeah.
drink, we take a smoke, right? And then when we get clean, we want everything to come now. We want to feel fucking 1,000% and get our body restabilized and our brain restabilized. And I think learning patience was one of the most difficult yet helpful things in my journey. And I remember somebody once told me, because I used to complain a lot, like, when is my brain going to feel right? Like, when is my body, and sometimes even 3 years later, these thoughts occasionally come up. And I remember a person once told me, they're like, how many years were you out there poisoning yourself for? And I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know, maybe 10, 12. They're like, give yourself at least half that time, at least,
It
and
takes
then
a
see how
while. Yeah,
it
yeah. It
takes a
definitely
long
takes a
time,
while.
And I know this is like a very right. If you ask science, you ask a psychiatrist, they might be like, oh, well, your brain will rewire in 2.5, 3 years. But I feel like it's so personal for each person
Yeah, it's
based on,
different for
you
everybody.
know,
I agree. Hey, by the way, bro, we couldn't even hardly see. You got to keep that camera steady.
oh, my bad,
Yeah,
bro.
I want people to see your ugly mug, bro.
Man, my bald head looking shiny today for the camera.
Oh, hey, man. I'm just messing with you. But yeah, man, it does. It depends a lot on how long you were out there using, how much you were using. There's people we all know in the rooms, man, that goddamn, man, some of them, they come back, maybe come back after a relapse. And you think to yourself, whoa, they went a little too
Some a little
far
too
one night
far.
while they were
Yeah,
out this time. And,
yeah.
people do come back, I mean, there's probably people watching these fucking shows going, oh, God, Glenn went way too far one time he was out there. I'm for the most part, hopefully, kind
Yeah.
of the same old good hearted person, but maybe I am a little crazy. I don't know, but you're right,
That's
bro. It
crazy
depends.
though, Glenn, because I can honestly say, bro, like when I look at my journey, I think one of my biggest motivators to getting and staying clean is that anybody that has gone through addiction cycle, withdrawals, whatever, has gotten a taste of what insanity feels like. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
felt insanity in my mind, and I'm sure you did too. And like when I would hear stories about people that went too far and they never came back, that's what truly scared the shit out of me, man. Because I'm like, wow, I already got a little taste of what it's like to be psychotic. Imagine if
Yep.
I keep going on this road, So
Yeah. Well, you know what, Shebang? It reminds me of something we've talked about on this program a few times, and I'm just going to keep putting it out there, man. And this is a practical idea for someone who may be watching, struggling with addiction, or maybe even a family member, an employer, whatever, colleague who wants to understand it more. There's another documentary that I've talked about on this show a few times. I'm going to keep talking about it. It's called The Neuroscience of Addiction. And I know you and I've talked about it a lot, Shebang. It's not, going to take you real long to watch it. I think there's 5 episodes that are a half hour long, but man, they have made more advancements in the study of the human brain and addiction in the last 20 years because of technology than they have in the last 100 years. And anyway, the reason I bring that up is because they talk a lot in there about how the brain, after, drug use for however long a time it may have been or how much or whatever, does rewire itself. It can and does, in fact, repair itself, rewire itself. They've made all this progress on understanding these gaps between the synapses and all this shit. I'm no scientist and I ain't going to get too deep into it. All I'm going to say is for anybody interested, man, and especially if you're dope sick trying to kick right now, fuck, that's another way to kill some time while you're climbing the walls, and something that hopefully might motivate you to get clean is watch this thing, The Neuroscience of Addiction, man. It's really good. But anyway, we're getting a little off on the topic I wanted to focus in on a little bit more. So yeah, our boy who passed away this past week, I've said it, man. I'm so grateful that in the rooms. Yeah, Shebang, I'm just going to say it again, bro. Your camera, man, we want to see you, man. So, yeah, there you go. that's a little better. Anyway, when we come into rooms, man, sometimes if you're trying to kick, you're reluctant about going to a meeting high or using. Don't let that stop you, man. And that's exactly what the case was with our boy. And I mean, he would come to the meeting like fucked up. You could tell he was high as a fucking kite.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought to myself, some people, might take offense to something like that. I can't believe he come in here. He's playing games and shit and all that. No, fuck you, man. Let that motherfucker come because, hey, man, nobody gets up and, gets their day going and goes, you know what? I think I'm going to get fucked up and go to an NA meeting, man. Like you're going to the club. No, it ain't like that. You don't end up at an NA meeting by mistake. You don't end up at an NA meeting if you haven't done something to kind of fuck your life up, And in my opinion, the dude we're talking about, he knew he was fucking on that bad road, man. He knew that shit had him by the fucking balls. He was frightened, in my opinion, of what was going to happen that ultimately, unfortunately, did end up happening, He was there because he had a desire to fucking try to kick, man. And I remember talking to him, and he did want to. Unfortunately, and I ain't going to take his inventory and try to tell his story. I will say I happen to know the dude came from a lot of money. And he was a mover and shaker and a very successful businessman, and that whole kind of thing. He wasn't just some fucking punk off the street, although, he definitely hung on that side of town too, But man, I was just so fucking devastated, that hit me in the stomach like a gut punch when you told me that. Shebang shared this news with me earlier this week. And so I'm not saying the dude committed suicide. We don't think that's what happened. I'll also say, man, that when that shit's got you by the balls like that and you're literally trying to get help and you're going to meetings and shit like that, I believe he knew what his destiny was if he didn't get clean, man. And that's what happened,
It's crazy, bro, because Glenn and I, we have very similar spiritual perspectives, right? We believe a lot in energy and all that kind of stuff that comes along with it. And I've spoken to him many times, and I truly believe, because in the rooms, for people that aren't familiar, in the NA program, they call it a spiritual sickness, right? Or a spiritual illness. And I truly believe that, because I truly believe that people get possessed by some negative entity or some kind of energy when they're in addiction. And like that, like for our buddy's case, for example, he's coming to meetings, he wants to get clean, but that devil has got such a strong grip of him that he has to fight even harder than he's ever fought. And a lot of times people don't have it left in them to fight that fight, you know, and it's
Bro,
sad.
I totally get it. And, you know, for the average person, they may not fucking quite understand or get that shit. But it's true, man. I'll never forget. When I was kicking in Detroit, I went on this Zoom meeting that a friend of ours, Guy, man, was doing. And I went on because a friend of mine from Orlando was actually speaking that night. And these Zoom meetings, by the way, for anybody watching this program, if you're trying to kick and maybe, or even anybody just curious that may want to know what an NA meeting is like a little bit, but you don't want to go, there's fucking Zoom meetings out there. Just Google NA meetings in whatever fucking area you're in. You'll find a list online. It ain't fucking rocket science, anybody.
What's the great thing about Zoom is that you don't have to have it local. You could have it anywhere.
Well,
on the
that's
planet.
where I was going with that.
Oh,
You're
okay.
exactly right, Dean. So this Zoom meeting I went on, you know, there was a dude in a treatment center in London that logged onto the thing. And the reason I bring it up is because of what Shebang said. You know, he's laying in bed with his fucking hospital gown on in a treatment center trying to kick. And he literally, you know, when it came time for him to share and talk, he literally said, "Oh my God, you guys, I'm so fucking miserable. I'm trying so hard to fucking get clean and save my life." And then he said, "I feel like I'm fucking possessed with this shit." And here he is laying in bed with this hospital gown on. I had this, I shouldn't be laughing, but I had this vision of that movie, The Exorcist, where fucking, what's her name? Linda Blair's laying in bed with that, you know, pajama thing on. And it was like, yeah, exactly.
Vomiting that green shit everywhere.
But it's true, man. And you want to know something, Shebang? You and I have talked about this before. I remember telling my sister T, man, because that's where I went up and kicked, you know, before I went. Her and I, she knew I was struggling. You know, I had confided in her quite a bit before I went up there. And I remember telling her, "Oh my God, T, I feel like I'm fucking two different people. It's like have this battle going on inside of this person that wants to get clean and live right, and this other fucking guy that's using, you know." And it's like I go back and forth. And when I got to her house, literally the night I arrived in Detroit, got to her house, we're standing in her kitchen. Whew, man, I'm getting filled up thinking about this because it was a powerful moment. We were there talking, and I'll never forget her looking at me and saying to me, "I don't know who the fuck you are, but you are not my brother. I want my brother back." Oh shit, man.
That
And
gave
the,
me goosebumps, bro, because I've had such a similar experience where even today, 3 years later, my mom, whenever we talk about the past, she always says, "That wasn't my Shebang. Like, that was not him. That was something else," you know?
Yeah.
And, dude, it's crazy because, like, bro, like a quick little story on my perspective. So I remember, you know, we've talked a lot about, oh, is addiction a disease? Is it not? Like, we can go down that rabbit hole, right? There's no fucking right or wrong answer. But I remember for me, oh my God, bro, you almost gave me a heart attack, dude.
That was the freakiest fucking movie I ever seen in my life to this day. That movie fucking
staged my
freaks
house
me
out
out.
after seeing that shit, man.
Yeah, that was a trip.
But dude,
get
I
that out of there,
remember-
D. I don't even want to look at that.
He's like, I'm trying to get some sleep tonight, man.
Right.
But yeah, dude, as I was saying, man, like I remember, so at one of my relapses, I remember I had a span of time in my life where I couldn't get more than 90 days clean, and I would keep relapsing. And
He seems to have an internet connection.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Having some trouble
Hey,
hearing
can you hear me?
Shebang. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lost you for a second there. Okay. We got you now.
Okay. My bad. I don't know what's going on with my internet, but yeah, like I was saying, man. So I remember a specific case where my plug, when I was on a relapse, right? This was the time I relapsed in the past, and he hit me up saying, "Hey, man, I got these new pills if you want to try them." And I was like 72, 73 days clean at the time. And I remember everything inside of me in my will did not want to go get the drugs. And it's like something greater than me, some demonic entity, whatever the fuck you want to call it, pulled me to my car, took me to his house to go pick up the drugs. And for me, I've had that experience happen one time that was so vivid that it really changed a lot of my perception on the whole addiction thing. You know, it really, that's what really started making me realize, like, okay, this is greater than me. And so if I want to fix it, it's going to take more than just this right here.
Hey, we want to say hi to Kelly. She just chimed in, said, "Hey, sorry for you guys' loss." Yeah, well, thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that. And you know, Shebang, I appreciate you sharing that story. But again, it just goes to show, man, this shit ain't no fucking joke. You know, at the end of the day, yeah, we laugh and joke and have fun and carry on, and we should. You know, we deserve to do that. It's also at the end of the day, this is about life and death, man. And you know, it's just so sad when you hear of another guy or girl, you know, another person that you know was struggling, knew they had a problem and a challenge, ends up dying from, you know, drug use. And, you know, so talking a little bit more about the whole suicide connection and, that whole thing. It's like I said, man, I'm not saying the dude that we knew who passed this past week committed suicide. We don't know. You know, I was thinking before too, Shivang, about that boy we knew. Whew, man, again, I'm trying not to get filled up, man, because whenever I tell this story, it fucking reminds me of myself, you know, and I can say the guy's name. You know, I don't want to mention the guy we knew because it's still kind of, you know, maybe too soon. But if you remember, Shebang, it's been about, you know, a year and a half ago, there was this young guy, Colin. And it was a guy you knew, you know, Shebang knew, y'all.
Close friend.
Yeah. And we were at a meeting at the East Side Alano Club, the 10 o'clock daily maintenance group, 10 o'clock at night. They meet 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I call it the best home group in the world. Miss y'all up there, by the way. Anyway, this kid Colin sits right next to me, man. We had a table of about 8 people and all sharing our stories, trying to inspire each other and everything. And I remember that boy sharing, man, you know, that he was back from a relapse, trying to get clean and all. And I'll never forget him saying, "Yeah, man, I've been trying, and I figured, fuck, I've been here before. I figured I'll try this NA shit again." And then he realized what he said, and he goes, "Oh, I ain't mean nothing by that, y'all." You know, we all started kind of laughing.
I remember that.
Like, yeah. he felt self-conscious that he was saying this NA shit again. And we all laughed because we all been there like, bro, we get it, man. You ain't got to apologize, you know. We're just glad you're here, man. Keep coming back.
Yeah.
And he went on to tell his story about how he was getting ready to try to go back to college and all that stuff, man. And that was part of my story when I got clean in my 20s, man. You know, I did go back to school and all that other stuff. And it's just he reminded me so much of myself at that age. Fuck, man. I'm trying
it's
so
crazy,
hard
man,
not
because,
to get
like,
filled
bro.
up. But let me finish the story, Shebang.
Let
me finish the story, bro. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I need to tell the rest of the story. So I come back to the meeting a couple days later, and I see Shebang, and he tells me, fucking Colin's dead, man. Whew. And that shit still hits me hard, man. Young guy, he was probably about 24, 25 years old. Like I said, reminded me so much of myself at that age, man. And he was trying. He had the desire, man. He was there. He was back from a relapse, trying to fucking get clean. And to the best of our knowledge, he got a hold of some of them fucking bullshit pills, man, laced with fucking fentanyl, and fucking OD'd and died. And God bless him, man, you know. So, yeah, for anybody watching this program, man, you're trying to kick, you know, I hope we can be an inspiration to you. And again, same thing with Colin. I don't believe that boy committed suicide or was thinking about it or trying, but he knew he had a fucking problem, man, or he wouldn't have been at that fucking NA meeting. So anyway, God bless Colin too. What were you gonna say, Shebang? I didn't cut you off, but I wanted to finish.
No, you're good.
You know,
you're good, brother. And
story.
I'm glad you finished that too, man, because that impacts my heart still too. You know, years later, and like a big lesson I've really learned, and it's something that a lot of people like know, right? Like people know consciously, but they don't truly know. And what I learned from this experience with Colin is that addiction don't discriminate, bro. Here is a 24-year-old kid in college, top of his class, got a beautiful girlfriend, beautiful family, gym guy, worked out all the time, and still fucking got his ass, you
Well, you
know?
know what, Shebang? It reminded me too of something that you hear a lot around the program, and I hadn't heard it for a while. And when I was back and up there in Detroit, we were going to meetings around town a lot together. And there's that boy Pierre, you know that boy. And hey, bro, if you see this, hope all is well, man. But he reminded me. He shares this sometimes of something I had heard a long time ago that I hadn't heard in a while, and I'm so fucking glad he said it. And he was talking, about an experience he had where when he first started getting clean and he was staying clean for a while, his sponsor said to him, "Bro, you starting to do this now. If you gonna stay around here, you need to get you a nice suit." And what he meant by that was, you stick around here for a while, you're going to end up going to some funerals, just like what we were just talking about. And that is true. I've been to my share of NA funerals, and it is not fun. And then he went on to say, and if you don't stay clean, we might just end up using that suit for you. So, boom, think about that for a moment. Yeah,
That's
so
true.
you're going to come around NA and get clean. You come around NA and hang around, get yourself a nice suit because, man, it sucks. You will go to a lot of funerals. I mean, I will tell you, man, I still go to meetings on the regular, and it seems like I'm just kind of ballparking it, but it does seem like about at least once every 6 weeks or so, sometimes less, sometimes more, sometimes it even comes in spurts. You hear about somebody fucking dying from an overdose, that you know from the rooms. Has that been your experience too, Shebang? I mean, we're talking about a
Yeah.
couple people we know, but you hear about it all the time.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's I feel like in the last couple of years, like you've talked about in the show with this whole fucking fentanyl epidemic, man. Like even people that might not have a hardcore drug problem or been addicts for a long time, shit, you can be partying, bro. Like I know a lot of
Yeah.
people that aren't fucking addicts, they party on the weekends and ooh, I want to try a Percocet or I want to
Weekend
try a little bit
warrior,
of
yeah.
cocaine. You go out and get some shit off the streets and who knows what's in that, bro. It's like playing
Yep.
Russian roulette,
Well, you know
you know?
what? Yeah. So let's kind of, again, bring this back around to, what the focus of the show today was teased as and talked about. And we're going to get into the depths of it in a second here, talking about, suicide. And, suicide as a topic in and of itself, and also the connection there is, because there is a connection with opiate use and drug use in general and all. And, we talked about, some things having to do with it. I also want to tell a little bit of a personal story here. I'm not ashamed to tell this story, I'm not proud of it. I'm going to tell it though. I'm not a suicidal person. I've never like physically tried to commit suicide. I do know people who have physically tried it. Um, I'll also say there was a night. Oh man, if I get through this without fucking starting to get filled up with tears, man, it'll be something. And I've told Shebang and a couple others a story. There was a night when I was all fucked up, y'all, where I came that close. Um, wasn't in my right mind. I was so strung out on them fucking pills. I was taking fucking Opes. I was taking Xanax. I was taking fucking Adderall. I was like a fucking trash can. And at that time, I had gotten hooked on the booze again. I tried so hard to stay off the booze, and I did pretty good for most of my opiate addiction. But them last couple years, when I was trying to kick on my own, I picked the bottle up again because I thought these fucking withdrawals are so fucking horrible. Maybe if I have a few drinks, it'll help to take the edge off and help get me through the opiate withdrawals. Well, as I've said on here before, I don't recommend that. Oh, God, especially if you've ever had a problem with booze, don't fucking do it, man. Don't do it. You know, smoking weed, kratom, whatever, that's a whole different story we can talk about another time, but don't fuck with the booze is my recommendation because I got hooked again. And before I knew it, I was back to drinking a fifth or more of fucking JMO every day, plus beers, all who God only knows how many fucking beers you're drinking a day, you know what I mean? And all that other shit on top of all the other shit I was doing. And I was so fucking depressed that I had gotten myself back into that situation because like I've said, y'all, this ain't my first rodeo with this shit. You know, I lived clean for years. You know, it's like that boy Kasky said when we were at that Music of Artists Summit, Shebang, once you've seen the light and you fall back, oh man, that shit kicks your ass that much harder, and it's so much harder to bounce back. You know, that's where I was. And I'm fucking laying in bed one night, and I was drinking all fucking day. And you know how it is, man. I don't give a fuck what people say. We all know alcohol is a depressant. So, yeah, when you first start drinking, it gives you that euphoria, that warm feeling. You get all talkative and happy, joyous, and free and all that other shit. But then as the night goes on, the more you start drinking, that shit fucks your mind up, and you start to get depressed, man. And then especially where I was in my life at the time, knowing how bad I was fucking up, killing myself, trying to fucking get clean and sober and kick again, and I just couldn't fucking do it. And so, yeah, man, I'm really skirting around this and beating around the bush, but I'm fucking laying in bed one night, man, and I was so depressed. I'm fucking crying, bummed, all that. And, you know, I fucking had this fucking bottle of Zans, man. I just got my fucking re-up on my fucking pills, man. And, oh, God, yeah, like I said, man, trying to get through this without getting filled up. And I'm fucking laying in bed. And I just didn't want to fucking go on, man. And I dumped that whole fucking bottle of Zans in my hand. And I was ready to fucking swallow them. Oh, man. Shit still hits hard, y'all, you know. Obviously still some healing going on, but you know, I just broke down fucking crying, man, and ended up like in a fetal position, you know, that I had gotten to that point in my life, you know, and then I fucking woke up, I don't know however many hours later, and there's pills all over the fucking mattress, and I realized what I had almost done, man, and where my mind had taken me and how bad that shit had gotten for me. And so I tell that story in part, y'all, because I get it, you know, and this whole fucking thing of suicide, it can be a controversial thing because my attitudes about it have really changed, you know. There was a time, and there are still people who feel this way, that it's like the most selfish thing you could ever fucking do. How could you do that to the people that love and care about you? And what a fucking cop-out and all that. And I get it, man. I used to think that way, I think, because I was so frightened of ever really wanting to check out like that. So I had this fucking, fuck that bullshit, you know, what a cop-out and all that. But then when your fucking mind gets so fucked up, and you, especially if you're all fucked up on dope and shit, and you start thinking that way and you have an experience like I did, wow, man, now I try to have more compassion about it. Like, oh my God, how could somebody, you know, you get what I'm saying, you know, have compassion that somebody would get to that place because it fucking happened to me. And like I said, y'all, I'm not a suicidal person for the most part. You know, I'm a pretty happy person. You know, I work on my peace and all that stuff. But that's the point that shit drove me to. You know, and so, you know, I made some notes on some other stuff, man. It's like, it blows my mind, some of the high-profile people, too, that have committed suicide, you know, like Bourdain, fucking Anthony Bourdain. You know, if you don't know who he is, you know, he had that TV show where he traveled the world and, you know, food connoisseur and all that, no reservations. And he fucking committed suicide out of the blue. And then Robin Williams, you know. Man, I got a story about that. I got into a fucking Facebook fight with somebody who's passed away now that I still feel horrible about because my mindset was the old way of thinking, like, how the fuck could he do that? Fucking multi-millionaire with family and everything. I can't believe he checked out. But then come to find out he had this horrible disease, this, what was it, Louis dementia or whatever the fuck they call it, you know. Nobody in their right mind would do that. Obviously, there was something seriously wrong with these folks mentally that they decided to check out. There's that boy Chris Cornell from fucking, Audio Slave and them guys. Yeah, there's Dean got up some Robin Williams pick. And with Chris Cornell, there's these conspiracy theories. Well, people think, oh, he might have been killed, whatever. They found the dude hung in his room, man, and he had challenges and he was using drugs and his old lady was even trying to help him, and I don't mean this in any disrespectful way. I'm just bringing these up because fuck, man, it's more common than we all like to admit or acknowledge. There's a stigma attached, In fact, I'm going to say it because I know he wouldn't whine. Shebang, you and I are buddies with that boy Kasky, and we love the guy and his music and everything. He's been very, very open about his family history and how his old man committed suicide, And I don't know the whole story of it and all. Obviously, though, when you listen to Kasky talk about it in his lyrics and shit like that, he's come to an acceptance of it and has compassion for what happened with his old man. I remember when he was talking about it, Shebang, you might have picked up on this at the summit. If you remember, we were sitting like right next to his mom. And she was just like a couple chairs over from us. And I remember specifically, bro, and it's been years since that happened with him. And he was talking about it and his mom getting filled up right there at the summit. So that shit does affect others, man. It absolutely does. So it's just a fucking topic that I think deserves discussion. And that's part of the reason I felt like we should talk about it on this show today. And I don't mean to keep hijacking the conversation, Shebang Dean, but I do want to make this point because I've talked about this many times, that even for myself, when I had reached a point of the story I told where I felt like I wanted to check out, we sometimes forget that other people love and care about us. And when you're all fucked up on the dope and using and booze or whatever the fuck, our image, our self-esteem becomes so fucking low. We feel like a piece of shit because we know we're fucking up. We've fucked up our life. We're hooked on dope. We're fucking up all our personal relationships, our job, our money, legal problems, whatever the fuck your story might be. But our self-esteem gets so low, we sometimes forget that other people love and care about us. And I had to come to an acceptance of that and embrace that and remember that, that for whatever reason, some of y'all still love and care about crazy ass Glenn, But the point I'm making is, I'll take you and Dean, for example, Shebang. You guys, if I were to find out, tomorrow that God forbid, one of y'all went out and, or like say Shebang, you relapsed or Dean, you decided to commit suicide or whatever, I would be fucking devastated. You guys are my bros. I fucking love you guys. That would fucking fuck me up. But I wasn't thinking that way when I was all fucked up, ready to check out. I got 2 kids, for God's sake. I got family, siblings. You guys are my buddy. I would like to think that if that happened to me, you guys would be like, damn, fuck, that sucks. Poor Glenn, or whatever the fuck. So the point I'm making is, if anybody's watching, listening to this program, you're struggling with drug addiction or not, just anybody who may come across this, please try to remember what I forgot for a minute there, that there are people who do love and care about you. No matter how low you might be thinking of yourself right now, it will fucking devastate them. But we do forget that, man, when we're out fucking up and we're thinking so low of ourselves. But you come through this, man. You fucking get through that addiction. You come out the other side. You reinvent yourself, which you can do. You'll feel so much better. I got to share this, man, real quick. I fucking follow all this shit on social media, and I try so hard not to let shit people post on social media fuck with me, and I'm pretty good at it, but sometimes I do let it get under my skin. And I know the dude didn't mean nothing by it. He just put it out there. But this guy I know, we were colleagues. He put out there, I'm paraphrasing now, how everybody now is all into all this enlightenment shit and the new me and reinvent yourself and do all this and that and the other, And he put a post out there, I'm completely content being the person that I always was, you know. It's like, hey, I read that and I almost took it personal, you know. In fact, I even have on my headline on my Facebook page, you know, we are not required to be the same person we were even 5 minutes ago, you know. And it's like, yeah, nothing against the guy. I don't mean this in an evil way, but it's like, man, how fucking boring is that? You know, I wouldn't want to be the same person my whole life. I've always been. You know, there's certain parts of me that'll always be the same. You know, I'm a good man. I got a good heart and all that other stuff. Point I'm making is, fuck, man, I've reinvented myself so many times in this life. You know what I mean? And thank God I've been able to do that. Because, like I said, I didn't want to fucking be the person I was when I was fucking up and using. And then, like I even shared on this show once, I remember telling my sister when I first started trying to kick, like, God damn, T, I just want my life back. Oh my God, I just want my life back. And then the longer I stayed clean and the more I started to get my reasoning and my clear thoughts back, I thought to myself, wait a minute. I don't want that fucking life back. Fuck that life. Fuck that guy. I want to be the new Glenn, the new and improved Glenn. You know what I mean? I don't want to go back to that life because what the fuck was going on in my head that drove me to fucking decide using dope was a good idea in the first fucking place and then when I was using it. So yeah, man, I love the whole idea of reinventing yourself, man, and you can do it. And thank God, you know, I'm at a place in my life where I feel like I'm at the best place I've been in my life that I can fucking remember. And just 2 short years ago, I was ready to fucking check out with that story I told y'all, because that was near the end of the run, man, when I was fucking ready to check out. What the fuck? That's where that shit had taken me. So anyway, I kind of went on a rant there. I didn't mean to cut you off, Shebang, but I really felt like it was important to share that story. And then, Dean, it looks like you might have had that one video queued up with that dude from the UFC, Patty. I don't know if you can play this or not, but there's a UFC fighter who, man, his name is Patty Pembleton, and he won a fight less than a year ago. And you know how they interview these guys at the end of the fight, and they talk about this, that, and the other. You know, I'm going to beat this motherfucker, and this is my next fight or whatever. This guy chose to take this moment, this platform, when all eyes were on him, wanting to see what he was going to say after winning that fight. Yeah, there he is. And if you're able to play it, Dean, let's go ahead and play it and hear what he had to say.
You gotta tell me if there's sound here. Sound?
Not hearing it yet. It looks like the video might have froze up. If we can't play it, it's all good, but I thought it'd be cool if we could.
Give me a second and
Okay.
I'll see if I can make that work again.
Okay, yeah, but anyway, I mean, we'll hear him if we can get it playing, but I'll just go ahead and tell y'all exactly what he talks about. You know, they're interviewing this guy post-fight, and a friend of his, a close buddy of his, a mate, as he called him, you know, he's a UK guy, they call him buddies, their mate, you know, committed suicide.
Okay, I got it now.
Okay.
Hopefully. Come on. Oh man, now it's pausing on me here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like freezing up. Well, you can see the graphics. He says, basically he's saying if you got weight on your shoulders, you know, there's a stigma for, you know, men speaking to their buddies about it or whatever. And he said, man, I would rather have my buddy cry on my shoulder than me having to go to his funeral because he checked out and committed suicide. But
That's true.
yeah, obviously, you know, just having a little challenge trying to play that on the you know, show here today. But for anybody who is interested, just go Google. Fucking there he is, Patty. I said Pimbleton. It's Pimblet, and you'll see his quote. So you know. Or you know, his interview, and I thought it was pretty cool of him to take that platform and talk about you know, a topic like that does have this fucking stigma attached to it that is such bullshit, you know, and it's a lot more common than we think. I'm looking at the chat here. Kelly chimed in again. she knows someone close to her that did the same thing, but with Norco. It was just the last straw. Well, yeah, man, it just goes to show it's real common. We appreciate that, Kelly. But, Dean, if we could, let's kind of get into some of the news stories that we came across on this whole thing. There is definitely a connection to the whole opiate epidemic and the suicide rate. And, opiate epidemic, as we all know, it started with this flood of fucking prescriptions that doctors started writing for people when the big pharma started fucking marketing all these fucking opiate pills to all these doctors and saying, hey, man, this is the next best thing since sliced bread. Let's start getting it out there and all that shit. And, it just really got out of control. So now they're doing all these research studies and this and that and the other, and trying to, understand if there is a correlation in the increase, which there is an increase in the suicide rates connected to the whole opioid epidemic. And that would have been pick 6, Dean. I don't know if you got it. Yeah, there you go. How opioid prescriptions and suicide rates are linked. And this was a story I came across in Healthline that's fairly recent. And as it says here, newly published study has found that opioid prescription rates may be linked to opioid-related suicide deaths. I'm just reading a story from Kelly. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that, Kelly. We just had a person in our chat, Kelly, shared a story about a person who did commit suicide and that nobody knew. And, yeah, man, they tried to Narcan him, but it was too late. So, Kelly, thank you for sharing that with us, and sorry to hear about the person you knew. It just goes to show, man, here on this one little podcast, we got somebody joined in on the show who's sharing a story with us. So, with this in mind, it's just like you and I were talking about, Shivang. We know a boy of ours that just died this past week from an OD. We talked about that boy Colin. We don't know for sure whether or not, it was suicide related or not. They're also showing these studies that, we talk about on the show how, according to the latest government stats, on average about 220 people die just in the U.S. every day from an opiate overdose. And that by the time we finish this program, 8 to 10 will die. And that doesn't include the suicides. We don't know how many fucking suicides go on top of that number. You know what I mean?
100%, man. Kind of going back to like the stigma that you were saying, man, I was thinking a little, and I feel like a lot of the stigma is I feel like humans just have that desire to understand. And things like being suicidal, I feel like no matter how intellectual you are, unless you've been in that experience, it's hard to understand because I used to kind of think how you were saying, Glenn, how a part of me used to be like, oh, it's kind of selfish, until I had a very similar experience. For me, I remember specifically, I wrote a suicide note to my parents, and I took a handful of gabapentin thinking that was going to be it. And I've been looking for this note.
I appreciate you sharing that, man.
Yeah.
That's deep, I mean, you're just kind of slipping that story in, but that's fucking heavy duty there, bro.
Yeah. Well, that note, man, I've been looking for that note for the last couple of years, because this was probably, I want to say 3.5, 4 years ago. But yeah, man, I never thought, like you were saying, I'm usually a pretty happy-go-lucky guy. Yeah, I got, bad days and down moments and stuff, but overall, my mental health is usually pretty stable. But allowing myself to get there at one point in my life really opened my eyes and showed me that, like, wow, this is, it's not, these people aren't weak. They're not just being selfish. Like, when you're in that stage, you forget what love feels like, bro. Everybody loves you, but like, you're so disconnected from that shit that, I don't know, it's a dark place, man. And I just want to say, anybody that's fighting through those kind of thoughts, man, keep going. There is a way out. There is a way out.
Exactly.
Exactly. I wonder if there's some sort of correlation between, because the drugs are initially meant for blocking pain receptors. That's the definition of why they put this stuff out. You have pain, they it gets in the brain, they block the receptors. I'm just wondering if there's some sort of correlation between that and the rest of the shit. Meaning, if it can block pain receptors, can it block something else that gives you any I don't know, awareness,
mental clarity,
mental clarity, awareness, because then that's why these pills got so popular for pain, and if it's obviously doing something more than that,
and
which
it
means
is. Yeah, bro. Again, that I just can't keep recommending it enough. That documentary, The Neuroscience of Addiction, man, that answers a lot of what you were just talking about. And yeah, that is it, Dean. It's like, and the thing of it is, though, I got to comment on this, man. One thing, and I can say this from personal experience, and it's a well-known fact that, okay, yeah, it was intended, and that's subjective too, to stop pain. That wasn't meant to be no long-term fix. It's a temporary thing, because the more you take it, the more you got to keep taking it, and the more of it you got to take. That shit turns on you, and I've said it before on this program, I'll say it again. We ain't coming after nobody's pain meds that are legitimately taking them and taking them way they're prescribed and all that other stuff, because I want to talk about that in a little bit here. And the point is, though, damn well as I do, if you're taking that shit, man, that you got to start taking more to get the effect you initially got. But 100%. You're exactly right, Dean. It affects more than just blocking pain, and also there's that euphoric effect. So going back to a marketing perspective from the pharmacies, on the surface you think, okay, this is all intended to help people in pain. From a marketing perspective, they're like, oh, this is also giving people euphoria, and the more they take it, the more they're going to want, and they're going to keep coming back for more, and money, follow the dollar. So, like I said, the whole thing of helping people with pain, that's all fine and good, but there's always more to the story as well. And them motherfuckers
if it blocks
full
pain,
damn well it was causing euphoric feelings, and it's basically fucking legal heroin. I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, I'm just saying, if it blocks pain, can it block love? Can it block hate?
Emotions?
Can it block all the other emotions that
you do.
The average person experiences all these emotions every week, and if all of a sudden you lose something like that, then you're erasing yourself.
You know what, Dean? I got to interject, because there's another saying around the program, and bang, I know you know this one, man. I love this, because, people do get emotional. Like, you talked about, Shebang, here, I'm over 2 years clean into it. I'm still getting filled up talking about shit like what I just did. And there's an old saying in the program, Dean, there's good news and not so good news when you get clean. The good news is all your feelings and emotions come back. The not so good news is all your feelings and emotions come back, because you get emotional about stuff, man. I can be fucking driving down the road listening to a song Shebang put out or whatever, and especially knowing you, bro, I'm like, or, watching a TV show or a movie, or just reliving a memory or whatever, and man, you do, so what you're saying is true, Dean, man. That shit fucking numbs your emotions, man.
And that's crazy, Dean. Like, what I wanted to say is, like, I've thought about that lately too, is like, does it numb other emotions? And it definitely does. And I really, like, from my knowledge, I know, especially when you take things like opioids, right, floods your brain with artificial dopamine. And like Glenn was saying, the more you take, the more you need, but your brain only has so much dopamine. So after a while, there's no dopamine left to flood. So it has to mimic it and create it, right? And it's like, at that point, all your receptors are just so out of whack and fried that you're just fucking numb, or you're just all over the place. And it's,
what
crazy.
just occurred to me while we were just talking about that is, it just still to this day. Oh, I see Kelly, you put a post up. She said,
prescriptions
was
were given
for real pain, and then it spiraled and was being taken just to take, yeah, it's kind of like the whole thing. Well, fuck, if two make me feel that good, how will four make me feel? You know, that whole
Yeah.
kind of thing, you know. But you know, it occurred to me, I was thinking to myself, you know, here we're talking, you know, about, you know, addiction, how it affects addicts, things like that. If somebody's watching, going through it, trying to get through the other side, that there are people who, for whatever fucking reason, can take that shit or drink or smoke whatever and then leave it alone for a while. Leave it alone. Like we had G on the program a couple weeks ago. He said, God, Dad, it's so weird, man. I can have a drink or two every now and then not touch the shit for months. You know, where with guys like myself, and I don't mean to speak for you, Shebang, but, you know, people we know from the program, man, we pick that shit up. And like I just said, fuck, if two made me feel that good, how will four make me feel? And then it's like, God damn, this shit make me feel so good. I want to feel like this all the time. And now all of a sudden we're doing that shit all day, every day, and we develop a habit, and then it becomes a habit for so long that you are fucking hooked to the shit. And the same thing with them opiate medications. You become physically dependent on it, where if you stop taking it, you get sick as a motherfucker, you know? So anyways, let's kind of keep the conversation moving with some of these articles. That Dean, there was another one, I had it labeled as Suicide Stat Pick 5, patterns of opiate prescribing linked to suicide as well. And, you know, if you find that one, it shows that they keep doing all this research, y'all. And as we know, they, well, this is a different one, but we can talk about this. You know, suicide, as it says here, is a leading cause of death in the U.S., and one of the most recent stats they have is from 2021. So 48,000 people in, you know, this pretty accurate even for now. You know, the numbers don't change much from year to year. Other than that, they've been going up over the past several years. So just think about it, y'all. There's only 365 days in a year. So, you know, that means that, you know, you do the math, you know, 48,000 divided by 365, that means 131 people a day are dying from suicide. Divide that by 24 hours, that's almost 6 people an hour are checking out, dying from suicide. And this is just the United States, y'all. This is a worldwide thing. So think about it. You know, it looks like we're going to go about 2 hours on this program today. Fucking, you know, we're talking like fucking 10 to 12 people are going to die by suicide just in the short 2 hours we're taking on this program to talk about it.
So think about it, bro. And that's just reported too. Like, what about the cases of we don't know their cause of death, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying, bro. Even with the drug overdoses, that's why I wanted to tie this into the whole opiate thing, is because a lot of these deaths, man, you know, we call them drug overdose and whatever, but did they do it on purpose? Did they get to the point where I was? Because, see, I could have checked out that night, and maybe it could have been labeled suicide. I never would have been in that state of mind, had it not been for the opiate addiction, and then putting the booze on top of it and the other pills I was taking to help try to get me through it. So what do you label that as? A drug overdose? A suicide? Both? I mean, I don't fucking know, you know, it's just fucking blows my mind. Dean, there was another one that they did a study where, you know, as we know now, the DEA, man, they fucking cracked down on this shit, you know, even going all the way back to the days of the pill mills in Florida and, you know, 20 fucking years ago. And now they've made it so much tougher for doctors to even write scripts and stuff. So they did some research in areas where they have legitimately cut down on the number of opioid prescriptions written, and they've been able to make a direct correlation with a reduction in the number of suicides. So I just found the story to be fascinating right here. Look at that. This is a recent article from Columbia, the Mailman School of Public Health. And as it says, regions of the U.S. with the greatest decrease in opioid scripts found to have the greatest decline in suicide deaths. Well, I don't think that's a fucking coincidence. You know, I mean, I get it, y'all. I take all these different studies and research things done with a grain of salt, but I just thought that was a pretty fucking interesting correlation there. My dog's giving me a nudge at the leg. Here, Jesse. And I thought it was important for us to show that on this program. Dean, there was another article that I thought was important for us to talk about, and it was a New York Times one. And this talks about what about the connection with legit pain patients that I've talked about on the show, man. We ain't coming after people's pain meds who are legitimately taking them as prescribed, which very often are the elderly, you know, seniors late in life who legitimately have bad aches and pains potential. You know, you get the idea, even cancer patients. And now all of a sudden, here they were getting fucking opiate medication left and right, you know, easy to get flooded. And now all of a sudden they're being cut off from their meds. They're being put through hell to get their fucking meds. Like, even when I first started taking that shit, man, I could go to the doctor every other month. Yeah, this is the one I was talking about, Dean. Then they changed it where, you know, I could call in my refill in between months. Well, then I had to go into the fucking doctor's office every month to get a refill and meet with the doctor, which means more fucking money because you got to pay the doctor more and all that other bullshit. You know, the Fed and the DEA have made it much more difficult for legitimate, well, even not legitimate, opiate patients to get their medicines. And so I like the way they wrote it in this article. If you look at the top, it says patients who are abandoned. Oh, now I can't read it. Yeah, to withdraw. They are abandoned to withdrawal and untreated pain, have an increased overdose death risk, nearly 300%. And then, as it says, and the risk of suicide is also significantly elevated. So I just thought this was fascinating because it gives the whole opioid connection to suicide a whole nother spin. Here, we just been talking about how it fucks people's brains and thinking and emotions and all that up to drive them to a point of thinking about committing suicide, like what was happening with me. But here, on a completely different end of the spectrum, people who are legitimately taking opiate medication, and again, like I said, most often and very commonly are seniors, are being cut off from the fucking meds they legitimately need, or it's become so difficult for them to get, like it says, they're abandoned to withdraw, that they're in so much fucking pain and now thrown into full-blown withdrawals, they end up just saying, you know what, fuck this, I'm checking out. You know, what a fucking way for somebody to end up going near the end of their life when you become a senior and an elderly person. You know, you get fucking physically dependent and hooked on this medication that doctors full knowing prescribed, and perhaps even like we talked about, with all good intentions to treat people's pain. And then all of a sudden, because of a political issue, and the Fed and the DEA trying to cut down with all good intentions, I suppose, now all of a sudden these people are being cut off from the fucking pain meds they've been fucking taking for so long and go into full-blown withdrawals and commit suicide over it. What the fuck? Just fucking blows my mind, man. It's just, and I'm not even necessarily giving an opinion on it one way or another. I just think it's important to shed light on this and talk about this is what the fuck is going on, man. And, when I was using, I had a fucking plug of mine who actually is a buddy of mine too, and we still communicate from time to time. Good people. You and I have talked about this, Shebang, how, a lot of times you get into program and, you and I say, we don't work the most orthodox program. I'm an NA guy, say it all the time. But, motherfuckers will tell you, you got to give up old places and playthings and people and all that. And you know what? I understand the concept of that. The whole, if you hang around the bar shop long enough, you're going to get a haircut thing. I'll also say, bro, I have people in my life who are good fucking people,
Yeah.
family, friends. It doesn't mean they're bad people or evil people. They have a struggle and they're legitimately going through it, you know? So I don't just fucking abandon all these people in my life because I chose to get clean. You know, I might sometimes have to keep people at a little bit
Boundary.
more of an arm's length because, like I said, I ain't using now. They still are. Point I'm making, though, bro, is that I still communicate with this one friend of mine, and we used to fucking trade pills all the time. I'd get them from him, whatever the fuck. Point I'm making is, bro, he is an elderly person, and he's talked to me about the fucking challenges he's had to go through to continue to get his meds, which he legitimately takes. He has some very serious health issues as an older guy. And now, you know, he used to just get him from his family doctor and shit, and he has to fucking go to one of them pain management clinics. They fucking put him through hell just to keep getting his shit. And so, you know, the point I'm making is, man, you know, they take these meds away from people who legitimately need them because all these fucking people using them just to get high. And then it brings a whole nother perspective to the thing. So anyway, with all that said, yeah, man, I just thought it was, you know, and then too, you know, this is another interesting component to the whole thing is that it's also fueled the rise in fentanyl use and heroin off the streets because it's a vicious circle, man. You know, I get it. They crack down on the number of scripts being written. They make it tougher for doctors to write and all that stuff. They're trying to reduce the amount being written. People who are so fucking hooked, just like what happened with me with snorting fucking heroin. I couldn't fucking get no pills. The good wasn't there. So the dope man's like, hey, bro, you know, we got some fucking heroin to hold you over till we get the good again. It's an opiate, you know, at least fucking so you don't get dope sick. You know, thank God I didn't fucking die. You know, I got more war stories I haven't told on this show yet, y'all. There's more coming. But the point I'm making is the crackdown, which is being done with all good intentions, they're trying to cut down on the number of people getting hooked on this shit. But in the meanwhile, the people who got hooked are kind of caught in the crossfire, man. And then they go try to get this shit on the street. It's laced with fentanyl and everything, and it's fucking fueled the rise in overdose deaths and suicides through the whole fentanyl thing. It's just fucking crazy how far-reaching this shit is, man. It just fucking blows my mind. Dean, I know you showed a bunch of pics having to do with the stats and everything. But if we could, I kind of wanted to go into them again. We showed the one, I had it as suicide stat pick 1, you know, it showed the number of suicides. And then I know you showed a couple others, but I just kind of wanted to go through them all. Because by showing them, you know, it'll generate some discussion and some talk. Yeah, here's one. So the adjusted rate, you know, and again, this is just the United States, y'all. Out of 100,000 people, we're talking 13, you know, almost 14 people will commit suicide. Fucking crazy. It's mostly middle-aged white guys. Then you got men end up dying almost 4 times more than women committing suicide. On average, as we talked about 130 per day in the United States. Yeah, doesn't that fucking blow your mind, Shebang? That's another reason why I wanted to talk about this on the show today.
That's
you know, it's like I went into it. I went on a little rant last week. We were talking about that whole Jerry Springer thing, and there was this guy. Yeah, he is an old colleague of mine, fucking news director, was trying to trash Jerry Springer about the type of show he did. You know, fucking guy just died, and I'm thinking to myself, motherfucker, the shit you put on TV that you fucking called news all them years you were working, you know, this stabbing in the neighborhood, that shooting, that robbery, and all that shit. And I get it. We all want to know about crime in our neighborhood. But meanwhile, you got 130 fucking people dying every day from suicide. Where the fuck is that on the news? Isn't that news? Isn't that important? You know, this whole opioid epidemic, you know, doesn't that deserve some attention? And not to mention all the good news going on in the community. You know, these fucking local newscasts have gotten so far away from reporting what I call legitimate news, man. It's become like a fucking crime blog, crime blog. I don't know. That's my little rant on that. But anyway, I don't know, Dean. If you can bring some of them up, great. If not, don't worry about it. Going back to that other one that you had there too, though, I just thought those were interesting stats. It says that, in 2020, white males accounted for almost 70% of those suicide deaths. And then firearms, and that's a whole nother thing. I ain't getting into that whole fucking thing, talking about politics and shit. But, it does go to show, man, fucking, like I said earlier in the show, I had a friend text me, good thing I don't fucking own a gun because I just might use it right now, But anyway, I just thought that was an interesting graphic to show, and like I said, man, there's all kinds of other information out there. Tell you what, Dean, let's just go right to that help graphic. So, I think we've talked about this topic pretty in depth. So with all that said, we wanted to put this information out there too. This is important. If you or someone you care about struggling with addiction, remember that 988. That was the one that popped for me. Yeah, you can go to findtreatment.gov and the SAMHSA helpline. There's 800 number and all that. But the one that's easy to remember is 988. Just like 911, 988. If you're really seriously thinking about checking out, man, just fucking call the number 988. Or if you know someone who may be seriously thinking about doing it, 988, 988, And as far as somebody going through, drug withdrawals or trying to get clean or whatever, just fucking Google NA meetings or AA meetings. It ain't fucking rocket science. Shouldn't even have to explain to somebody how to do that. Just fucking Google it and your area, and you will find the meeting list for your area. So anyway, I just thought it was important that we share that information too, that if somebody is struggling, there's some help out there. So anyway, yeah, we could talk about this topic obviously for hours, y'all, and I see we've got some viewers, man, that have hung with us this whole show, and people chiming in on the chat. So I want to thank y'all for participating in the show, and I'm sure we'll get many, many more who will see the recorded version of the show because we are growing, man. Our audience is growing, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But let's try to transition into something maybe a little more upbeat and positive. But, because that is a deep topic, man. It's a deep topic, But like we said, man, if you're going through hell, just keep fucking going, bro. Don't give up. You come out the other side of it. I'm living proof of that. And I know Shebang and thousands of others are too. So, Dean, if you could, we had that one picture I sent you out of the pit. And, I come across all these different memes and things online just as much as anybody else. I'm on, boy, my dog is really hacking over here. She had a rough week, man. I don't know if y'all can hear that. But anyway, I came across this one meme that I thought was really good. And it said, I'm trying to. Are you finding it, Dean? It was.
There's a few here. So
yeah,
one was a picture of a clown
out of the pit, and I think it was a black graphic with white letters. But anyway, it says, "God pulled you out of the pit." Yeah, so you could go back in and get more people out. Never forget that. So, that's kind of where I'm at with this whole fucking podcast, y'all, because I truly do feel like I'm living on borrowed time, y'all, coming through that addiction. I've shared on here the whole cancer scare I had and all that. And, that's one of the things that keeps me going with, not just doing this podcast, but going to meetings, Shebang, you and I have talked about this. Sometimes, man, I ain't in no fucking mood to go to no goddamn meeting. But sometimes I think to myself, you know what? They were there for me. Who knows? I might show up and they might not be able to relate to nobody else at that fucking meeting, but maybe they'll be able to relate to something I say, whatever that is,
It's true.
And so, I got to remember that. It's like, I have a NA sponsor out here, my girl Shay. What's up, girl? If you watch this, can't wait for you to come out and meet her, Shebang. But she was sharing the other night, you know, and it's so bizarre how sometimes people will share things at a meeting that hits home right where you're at, and they have no idea what you're going through or thinking about at the time. But sometimes I do question myself, like, oh my God, this fucking podcast, because this has become a lot of work too. You know, am I wasting my fucking time? But then, you know, I get messages like the DMs I shared earlier in the show, and she shared that, you know, without knowing where my mindset was, she was like, you know what? When I come to these meetings and share, my message ain't for everybody. And that's how I feel about this podcast. This is not for everybody. You know, I'm sure there's some people, you know, who watch this thing, you know, because I'm sure there's a lot of looky-loos and curiosity seekers, especially people from my professional life that used to know me, like, what the fuck is Glenn doing? And they watch this shit like, oh my God, what is this fucking shit show? You know, there's also people who we know, you know, who have gotten a hold of us saying, oh my God, thank you for what you're doing, man. You're helping people and all that. And so the point I'm making is, Shay shared the other night, she goes, you know, my message ain't for everybody. She said, but I can't be concerned about that, you know. She said, I look at it as just like a postman or a mailman, you know. The mailman goes and delivers the mail, but he don't stand there watching to see who's going to fucking read the mail or not, you know. And so that was a good analogy to me. It's just like with this podcast, man, or when I share at a meeting, bro. You know, it's like my message might not be for everybody. This podcast might not be for everybody. But I'm like the mailman. I'm just putting this message out there like everything we talked about today on this show and previous ones. And I'm not going to stand around to see who might watch, listen, or read it. You know, it is for who it is for, you know, and whoever's meant to see or hear this message, hopefully they do. I'll get to see or hear it. So anyway, I also wanted to share that, you know, we do try to have some humor, man. We talked about some pretty deep topics today with the whole suicide thing, but try to have a sense of humor about this whole recovery thing too. And, you know, I follow a lot of different pages on social media, and there's one that, again, speaking of it not being for everybody, is definitely not for everybody, but it's called Offensive Recovery Memes. Have you ever seen this one, Shebang?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of them.
Yeah, they have this on the site. It says, Offensive Recovery Memes welcomes you. Sit back and watch the twisted shit fly. Enjoy yourself as we make light of a very deadly disease that's trying to knock us off. Please keep and then that you talked about that clown pic. Yeah, look at that, Dean. 42,000 members subscribe to this. So just goes to show, man, that more people, you know, are struggling with this shit and, you know, involved in staying clean than might meet the eye. But the funny thing about this is they do have some offensive ones on there sometimes. And I saw a guy got pissed off about something they posted. He went on a rant and we were all laughing because we were like, dude, you fucking subscribe to an offensive recovery memes page and now you're getting offended. What the fuck, you know? It's all meant in good fun. And I liked that we showed that little quote they put up on the page before we showed this, that the dude is saying that created this page, like, hey, man, we're just trying to make light of what is a deadly disease. He's acknowledging that, but has a good sense of humor about it. And I will say, some of it's kind of sick, but yeah, here's a couple of them that were on there. I like this one because this happens, you know, to people all the time, and certainly happened to me more times than I can remember. When your friend says, hey, let's just get a quick beer, and you end up waking up the next day
Where the
in
fuck
another
am
fucking town watching the sunrise going, where the fuck am I? Or maybe you didn't even sleep, or this is a good one. Because we all got them fucking, can you bottom this war stories like I was worse than you were. But this one says, you can't say you party hard until you've slept with the refrigerator door. So you get the idea, y'all. Those two weren't that offensive. Okay, now this is going in a different direction, Dean. This is
I figured as much.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one in a second here. But there was also another one, Dean, that you know, I had. It's called the NA History Pick. And I just thought I'd put this out there, you know. Like I said, I ain't trying to endorse NA, ain't no representative. I'm just another fucking NA guy trying to stay clean one day longer. And this is a page I follow on Facebook. And these two dudes, Mike and Chris, cool NA history page. If you're a dope fiend and you're watching this, whether you're clean now or trying to get clean, look for it on Facebook. It's a cool page. You'll learn a lot about the history of Narcotics Anonymous. They have a lot of cool pics, archives, all kinds of stuff. That StreamYard thing seems to be blocking it, but they got thousands of subscribers to that page too. So anyway, those are just two small little examples I'd share, man, that there's a shit ton of stuff out there. Yeah, it looks like it has over 9,000 members.
Back to the offensive recovery thing, Glenn. So I knew a dude in rehab that actually, believe it or not, used humor as his higher power because he was having a hard time figuring that part out in his spiritual journey, and he came to the conclusion that humor gave him clarity, it gave him purpose, and it gave him direction. So hey, sometimes this shit's dark, but sometimes laughing at some of our pains from the past that we've made it out on the other side and we can use as experience to help other people. Some people approach it in that way. So
there you go, bro.
For sure.
Hey, I did want to acknowledge Kelly. She chimed in on the chat going back to what we were talking about earlier. She works in healthcare, and it says, man, my eyes. She said her patients who really needed the pain meds suffered big time because they couldn't get it when they actually needed it, and that it's sad. And yeah, man, I appreciate you chiming in on that, Kelly, being a person who works directly in healthcare. And thank you for being part of the program and sharing that with us. It just reiterates what we were talking about there. But anyways, Dean, just real quick, and then we're going to move on. I want to talk to Shebang about some music real quick, but that Jerry Springer thing you had up. We talked about Jerry Springer on this show and then last week, and I saw this, this one first, and then we'll show that funny one you showed a minute ago. Last week, I had mentioned that, we were talking about Jerry Springer's show and how there were some people trashing him. The guy just fucking died, and people were throwing him under the bus. Well, he's the one that started all that fucking bullshit TV, which, no, he wasn't. There were people before him, and I was like, what the fuck, man? What are y'all jealous? The guy going out and got paid? Good for him. But I had mentioned he was doing a Judge Judy type show. And Dean, you hadn't seen it, and you were like, no, man, I think he's been off the air for like 10 years. But no, he actually did that Judge Jerry show for like 3 years, from 19 to 22. So what I was seeing were not reruns. And then he even had a podcast for 7 years, from 15 to 22. So the point I'm making is the dude died from pancreatic cancer. He knew he had that shit near the end of his life, but he kept going, man. So, hey, more power to the guy. But here's the funny one. I just thought maybe too soon, but I just thought, knowing fucking Jerry Springer.
No, it's not too soon for Jerry Springer.
No, he would have loved this. He would have been like, oh, God, that's great, y'all. Celebrate what I did in life, But,
Wait a minute. Is that guy Steve? Is that Steve in the right corner? No.
I don't know, but I just thought this was funny because he would have loved something like this,
I actually met Steve. He was in my studio to record a commercial.
Oh, no
when
shit.
He was in Orlando.
It does look like him a little bit, don't it?
It's not him, but yeah.
He was the bouncer, by the way.
Yeah,
in case somebody
Steve Wilkos. Yeah, then his own talk show. He had his own show.
Yeah, that's right. He did. But so the point I'm making is Springer, Dean, just so you know, he did do that shit right up to the end, man, So, but anyways, shifting gears, Shebang, I want to talk about music a little bit, bro. We were talking earlier, man, you know how much I love everything you do, man, but there was a couple things I wanted to mention. When we went to that Future of Artists Music Summit in Orlando, what was it, last December, and we met all these artists, of course, Kasky, Anonymous, Tasty, all them guys. There was one dude we met out there, Angel Hill, who was on that one Kasky tune, You Don't Really Love Me. Well, he's been doing all his own stuff, getting out there, Nora, and he did a collab with this dude, Lil Phil, and the name of the tune is Sober. And they just put it out like this past week, and that shit is dope, man. I've had it on fucking repeat at the gym and stuff, man. So I wanted to put that out there. But you had mentioned your brother, Shu, who we got to get on this show, man. He's part of that
Yes,
group
sir.
that I just fucking love, Rare Hearted. He was out in L.A. working on a project. So I want to talk about that for a minute. Tell us about that, bro.
Yeah. So my brother, he's got a buddy of his that lives out in LA, and my brother is more of an engineer, so he goes out there every now and then when this guy has work that he needs done. And he went out there to LA, mixed and mastered some of his album that he's about to release, and in return, his buddy took pictures of him because he's like a videographer and a photographer and stuff. So yeah, he was out there about 2 weeks ago, man, in LA catching the Cali sun. I'm jealous. I need to get my ass out there, so
Yeah, and what was the dude's name? Blanco?
Blanco.
Blanco. Yeah, man,
Yep.
that name, when you told me about it earlier, I was like, damn, man, I know that from somewhere,
Yeah, I've sent you some of the music that my brother's mixed
Yeah.
for him. I've sent a couple songs to you in the past.
Well, I got to be honest, bro. I told Shebang this off the air, y'all. I've been slacking on my music the past week
Me
or
too.
two. With this past week, it was very stressful for me with everything going on with my dog, and then hearing about our boy dying, and it was just,
Yeah,
when you and I know this, bro. When you get in the studio, sometimes you really got to be in the right mood, man.
yeah,
That whole fucking artist block thing, writer's block,
that's
whatever you
true,
want to call it,
bro.
that shit is real, bro.
Yeah, and I've
But
learned for
sometimes,
myself, bro, that cause me, I like talking about like dark shit in my music, right?
yeah,
Like I like talking about the past and the addiction, and I've noticed that when I'm in the dark shit, like when I'm going through it, it's hard for me to talk about it. But as soon as I come out and I reflect on it, that's the best time for me to get in the studio for sure.
yeah,
You
no,
know?
you're right. Sometimes when you're in a deep emotional place, yup, you push through it is what I find. And
Yeah.
then, when I'm like not in the mood, God forbid I turn on that fucking TV, I really try hard not to turn that fucker on sometimes, you know, and I push through it and I get in this fucking chair, and pull up Logic and start working, then I'm happy. It's just like going to the gym. Sometimes I ain't in the mood to go to the fucking gym, but as soon as I'm in there, I'm like so glad I came, but it's kind of the same mindset with the music with me. Well, we'll talk more about that as we go. We're getting near the end, y'all. I know this has been a long show, but I did want to talk a little bit about the fucking progress we're making with this show. It fucking blows my mind, man. And
Crazy.
yeah, so I do want to ask a favor of anyone watching or listening, whether you're watching us live, participating live, or come across the recorded version. We're on a lot of different platforms. We're on a few different Facebook pages live. We're on at least a couple different YouTube channels. We're on Twitter. You get the idea. We're out there and still about to go on this Anchor podcast site and all that shit. But I built this Dare Me YouTube channel. And it's a good place to watch these podcasts. They're all there in chronological order, the order they've been done. I don't put anything else on there except the full podcast, and I've got some reels, some shorts, promos for it. It's very clean. It's not very cluttered. And we're just trying to, because that's where I was looking for information was when I was kicking, was on YouTube and Google. And so, all the other platforms are great. It's just that one's kind of special to me, and I'm trying to get it out there. So I just ask if anyone, I know, Shivang, you were asking for the YouTube link today, and I'm just asking if people would, if you watch it there, just subscribe, because it helps with the algorithms. If someone subscribes, likes it, shares it, YouTube and all the other platforms, they pick up on that shit. It's all
Yeah.
AI. The more interaction there is, the more likes, more subscriptions, the more the algorithm thinks, oh, this shit's relevant.
Yeah.
People are paying attention. So any subscription, not for any self-serving reason, it's just trying to help to get the message out there more, y'all. But I thought I'd share these numbers real quick. And this is just one analytic. There's a shit ton of them out there that I don't even understand all of them. But, even Dean and I were talking about it. Blows my fucking mind, the engagement we're getting on the YouTube page. It's up like 233% just in the last 28 days, and the average watch time. Anyway, I'm getting into it, but the Facebook Dare Me page that Dean's got up there right now, let's see, I'm looking here. The first episode, we had 17 views. Not a bad way to start, right? First show. The second show, we had 28 views. So it was going up. Third show, we went to 50 views.
Yeah.
The fourth, up to 61. Then the fifth week, we dropped down a little bit to 53 views. But then the sixth show jumped up to 85 views. And then last week, the seventh show, we went up to 87 views. And, it just keeps growing. It's going in the right direction, you know what I mean? And so, that's what I say, y'all. Sometimes I wonder, like, oh, my God, what the fuck did I get myself into with this goddamn podcast? Because now, man, it's a lot of work, and I'm not even keeping up with it at the level I want to because life happens and life shows up and there's all this other stuff. I mean, believe me when I tell you, I could be going hard at this 40, 50 hours a week, promoting it, getting it out there and all. I do what I can. Like I was saying, man, I could hire a full-time person to help me marketing this thing, but I'm doing the best I can. But the point I'm making is sometimes I wonder, like, oh my God, what am I doing, man? Putting myself out there like this, all this fucking work I've created for myself now, but the point is when I see numbers like that on just one little Facebook page, the engagement we're getting, the DMs we're getting, the feedback we're getting, I can't stop now, y'all. If we help even one person, I know I say that over and over, if we help even one person, then it's all worth it to me, and even like today's show, this, just so y'all know, this is the longest one we've done. We're coming up on 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Woo!
And yeah, in this age of micro content, that's a long time to be doing a show. It's like on TikTok. If you ain't got my fucking attention 5 seconds into your reel, I'm scrolling next. But that's not what this program is. This is not a TikTok reel. This is not an Instagram reel. This is a fucking podcast talking about serious issues. And I'll also say this, that when you're fucking dope sick, as you know, Shebang, you're climbing the fucking walls and the clock seems like it's taken forever. Oh my God, all you want is for fucking time to go by to hopefully start getting that shit out of your system and get on with your life. And I look at it this way. Hey, man, if we just help somebody who's dope sick, looking for a way out, trying to get through it, we just helped them kill a couple hours. If they stay engaged and watch this whole program, the recorded version, whenever they might catch it, so as far as time on this show goes, I've said I'd like to try to keep this show about an hour and a half, even for my own fucking, mindset, because, but we're not on a time clock, That's one of the beauties of doing this social media thing. This is our show. We can go as long or short as we fucking want to, I just kind of feel like an hour's too short. A couple hours, even today's show, maybe a little too long. But when we got, deep topics like what we talked about today, I don't think there's anything wrong with going as long as we have. So anyway, just thought I'd share that. And I just thought, it's kind of cool, and I got to give credit where credit's due. I think part of the reason for that is because of guys like you, Dean, you're doing such a great job, running this show from behind the scenes. You created that real professional opening to the show and close to the show, your engagement with the program, your patience with me, my demanding ass. Yeah,
Dean's face.
Shevang, you being so open and honest with your story and sharing with us. And man, I really hope you continue to be a regular guest on this show, even when we have other people on and stuff to interact. Man, it means the world to me, bro. I really appreciate it. And then, finally, I think I'll wrap it up with this, y'all. I'm working on these reels, like I just said, man. I'm trying to do promos throughout the week and stuff, and we haven't really done anything with like putting clips from the show out there. We had a couple that AI did, that we put out there that were okay. I think I kind of like doing them better myself. Just kind of like the whole Joe Rogan thing. If you're on TikTok, you see all those little shorts of Joe Rogan and, not to copycat what Joe Rogan's doing, but I love Joe Rogan's show, and I think they do a great job putting those little shorts of his interviews out there. So I'm going to start trying to do that more, y'all. And then, I put these little reels out there where I try to get creative with the music background and the pictures and the star effects and all that. I try to get out there more, y'all. You know, I know I bring it up a lot, but that Future Artist Summit thing I went to with Kasky and Anonymous and all them guys, man, you know, I learned so fucking much at that thing, man. I really hope they continue to do that and make an annual thing, because I'll always go back as long as I can. One of the things I learned there, man, you know, they said, hey, man, when you're trying to promote something like, you know, whether it's music or a podcast or whatever it may be, you know, social media is the way people do that shit now. And it was even suggested, man, you ought to be doing like 2 to 4 reels a day. And I'm like, fuck, 2 to 4 a day. I'm lucky if I get 2 a week, you know. So, you know, I'm getting better at it, y'all. I appreciate y'all's patience with me, for those of y'all that do follow me on social media, you know. And sometimes you put some out there and, you know, it's like they might seem a little cheesy. Even my own son was like, damn, man, some of that stuff kind of cheesy. But it's like, you work on them for a while and it's just like, fuck it, I worked so hard on this, I don't give a fuck. I'm putting it out there, you know. And some of them I kind of like. I think I did a good job with, and some not so much, you know. But anyway, this past week, Shebang, you'll get a kick out of this. I did a reel with, I used the music from that Kasky tune, Withdrawals, and I thought to myself, man, I kind of like that one. That was kind of cool. Let me send it to that boy Kasky, you know. And so I DM'd it to him. And you get one of these like auto responses, we have received, thank you. You know, I thought that motherfucker gets bombarded with shit. He ain't never going to see that. So I sent it to Marla, Anonymous, and he did reply, man. He gave me the thumbs up. And then he did a live this past week. I was watching. He was playing some beats, and he gave me a shout out. So hopefully that got to Kasky, because, you know, he did agree to be a guest on the podcast. I just haven't reached out to him yet, because we're still flushing things out. You know, I think we've reached a point where we're definitely ready to start bringing on some more of these high-profile guests to the show, you know. But I just thought I'd share that story, y'all. And so anyway, I'll keep working on the reels and the stories and trying to put more promos out for the show. But, you know, in closing, y'all, I do want to bring this full circle. You know, if you're going through it, if you're going through withdrawals, depression, you know, suicidal thoughts, whatever it may be, just please, 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 please try to remember something we talk about on this show a lot, that old saying. God, it helped me and still helps me to this day, y'all, because I ain't no fucking expert at doing this. You know, I'm just another guy, another human being. I have my bad and shit days just like anybody else, just trying to do the next right thing, have some peace in my life, put one foot in front of the other every day. And you're having a rough time, like we say on this show, if you're going through hell, keep fucking going. Just keep going, man. Fight the good fight. You will come out the other side, you know. Like I said, I have bad days, but right now, man, that I've come through all that bullshit, I feel like I'm living my best life, man. Most of the time I have peace and I'm fairly happy, or at least in a good mood, you know. And I wanted to fucking check out a couple years ago. I seriously thought about committing suicide. Like I said, I've never really been a suicidal person. I had that episode I described on this show. When I was in the depths and near the end of that drug addiction, y'all, it was an option on the table. What the fuck, you know? So, yeah, man, just keep fighting a good fight. And for those of us that have gone through the withdrawals, you know, like I said, man, I've got a couple years clean. Shebang, you got a few years clean. I know we have regular viewers and listeners that are clean and have been for a long time, program people that watch this show. You know, for those of us, we got to remember too, man, I'm speaking for myself, I got to fucking remember that, you know, it ain't always the last one that kills you. It's usually the first one that gets that shit started, you know. I even fucking tattooed that shit on my arm. One away forever. And that's just me, but it's right there as a constant reminder for me, man, because my sick thinking as an addict will try to trick me into saying, oh, I can just handle one. Yeah, one. What am I going to do? Have one fucking beer? When's the last time I ever had one beer? What's the point? That would be a fucking tease for a guy like me. If I'm having a beer, I'm having 6. And if I have 6, then I'll be like, fuck it, let's do some shots. And I have beers and shots, now I'll be like, let's get some of the real good shit, you know? So, yeah, man, it's like one away forever. You know, it's the first one that'll get you, not necessarily the last one. So let's always remember that. So anyhow, with all that said, Shebang, thank you so much for being on the show, brother. Anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
Man, just thank you for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be a part of something so positive for the community, man. So I'm grateful. So.
Well, bro, thank you, and we look forward to having you back on the show again real soon. Dean, thank you so much. Again, Shebang coming to us from Detroit.
Detroit, baby.
Yeah. And we had Linda on from St. Louis today. We got Kelly up in Livonia and Detroit area. We got Dean in Orlando. We are nationwide. Dean, thank you, man. Anything you want to add before we wrap up, bro?
I am good. Here to go.
All right. Well, hey, everyone, have a safe week. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll talk to you next time on the Dare Me podcast. Keep fighting the good fight, y'all.
Keep fighting.